Hello, everybody. It's Alex from the Remote Work Life podcast, and I'm here with Dipesh Patni. Dipesh Patni is somebody I've known for a number of years, and he's had an influence in my career. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little while, but Dipesh is the founder of Gravitas Q, having spent many years in digital marketing for a top agency called PhD. He's now a digital marketing consultant. He's gone from actually managing a team of 70, I believe it is, to now setting up his own consultancy, which deals with helping digital marketing agencies as well as client side work as well. And I'm going to get Dipesh to talk a little bit more about that in a little while. But Dipesh is also a partner with Help for Addiction. So this is something that as well might interest you as well. And I think this particular podcast will interest you there's a couple of things actually. If you've transferred or want to transfer from a digital marketing scenario, co-located scenario to a remote scenario, as well as that, if you are struggling as well with working from home, being isolated. So those are two areas that we're going to cover in today's show. So I just want to really say thank you, Dipesh, to you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. Hey, Alex, thanks for having me on as well. Appreciate taking the time.
No problem. What I want to find out, or what I want you to tell the audience first and foremost, Dipesh, we want a bit of a backstory about you. How did you come to be becoming a consultant, working from home, having built your way up through mainly SEO, digital marketing? Just tell us your backstory.
Yeah, sure. So actually, so I think a large proportion of my career was working at PhD, and that was approximately 9 years. Before I actually went into that, I was in sales, and I actually enjoyed being in sales. It was exciting. Sales was exciting, and I loved going into the sale and closing deals down and stuff. But then I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I've got all these IT skills. I love the whole marketing aspect of things. So I want to be put myself in a position where I'm a full-on expert at something and not just in sales. And that kind of led me down a path which actually initially didn't work out really well, because I was trying to get an SEO job. I'd heard of SEO from university, and things like that, and do you know what? Nobody would hire me for an SEO job. So with no experience, it's that whole chicken and egg thing. You don't have any experience, so we don't think that you're the right person for the job. Okay, fine, great. So what I ended up doing was learning SEO from searching on Google, and that led me on to setting up my own small SEO outfit. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much time on that, because to be honest, it worked out terribly. I took on a few clients. I was having problems getting money from clients and things like that. SEO was in very early days then, and a lot of people still weren't it wasn't a thing to do yet on the internet. So what happened was that I did do some freelancing projects, and PhD needed a freelancer, and I initially went to interview there as a freelancer. But they offered me a full-time role and said, it's not a freelance position now, it's a full-time role. Are you interested? You're going to get to work on clients like Sainsbury's and back then Cadbury's and things like that. And I was like, wow, true. Yeah, so I joined PhD on that basis. Absolutely frightened on my first day, because I went into a job where obviously I demonstrated some SEO abilities, but I only knew my SEO abilities on a smaller client, or someone who actually self-taught themselves from home, thinking that there's going to be people there that are going to know way more than me. I get there, and actually, the levels are pretty similar, the skill sets are pretty similar. And if anything, I had a slight advantage, because I thought that SEOs should know how to build websites back then, if you're going to work in a big agency or something like that. And it turns out most SEOs didn't know how to build a website or code or things like that, and I did, because I taught myself that at home, thinking that's what an SEO should know. So, cut a long story short, I had a very, very good career at PhD, and PhD still remains really close to my heart as a business. I always want to see them going up and never down, because, they made me in many ways. Whilst I did a great job there and I, got a lot of value, recognition, I got lots of exposure to building my network, to, speaking publicly and things like that. They did a lot for me, as much as, I put the hard work in.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely, a PhD is one of the highlights of my life at the time I spent there, because I went from, a very junior SEO to becoming head of SEO, running the team, rebuilding the team, taking that team into, a very high level of revenue from where it started.
How big was your team?
So when I first got there was only actually 2 of us, or 3 of us. There was only 3 of us. And we didn't even have a head of SEO. A head of SEO and things like that came afterwards. And so that initial team I was working in as a junior member was only a team of 5. Team of 5. I think by the time we were done, we were a team of 10. By the time when I became head of SEO, we were still a team of 5. I kind of doubled that to a team of 10. Until I was offered the job to then manage the performance digital channels.
Right.
So the performance digital channels included affiliates, paid search, social media, and the newly developed content team, which we just started building. So I spent 2 years running that team, and kind of, that team significantly grew. And, to be honest, I can't take the credit for all of the growth, because it was a joint effort.
Team effort, yeah.
Because massively, because we, firstly, I recognized that we had lots of resource problems initially. So I went and spoke to some of the, the heads, the CEOs, that, look, if we're going to build the best team, then we need X, Y, and Z. And to their credit, they signed off X, Y, and Z and said, yeah, let's do it then. So, that led to growth. And at the same time, we were winning lots of big business, which PhD still got, and then won more afterwards. So, I imagine that team is a bit bigger now. But, running that team it was absolutely spectacular. I loved it. The first year was the hardest year I've ever had in my whole career life, in my whole career, because it was stressful. Put it that way, it was stressful.
Well, I suppose when you're... I had a similar kind of scenario to you, because when Dipesh helped me out. Let me tell you a bit of my story about how I met Dipesh, because there was a time when I was making a transition into SEO as well. I also went the self-taught route as Dipesh did. I built websites myself and dabbled with different WordPress blogs to experiment with how I could boost traffic organically. But I came to Dipesh because I was at a time where I was reaching out to my network, and Dipesh was on my network, and I asked Dipesh, what his thoughts were on agency as opposed to working client side. And Dipesh gave me so much advice, which really steered my career along a course of SEO. And the way he gave advice, and I think everybody needs somebody like Dipesh in a network, the way he gave the advice, it was totally impartial. He didn't sort of have any bias one way or another, and he gave advice in such a way that for one, he was very busy, and so he was very kind and very good, generous with his time. But 2, he had so much in terms of his own experience to give and to share. He's very much a sharing person. So Dipesh, this I wanted to say, because this is the first time I've met Dipesh actually face to face. I just wanted to say thank you for that.
No, that's okay, mate. Anytime. You know I'm here. I think it's important to help people out in their career anyway, because, like we're talking now, you do podcasts and I'm on your podcast. I probably wouldn't be on your podcast, had we not had conversations in the past, right?
True.
So, everything goes round in circles. And the other thing is there are lots of kids and stuff out there who are just starting their careers, or there's people who want a career switch, right? And they need somebody to go to that is impartial and will offer them good advice. And I never had that when I was starting my career. So, and I wish I did. And to be honest, credit to you because you had the initiative to say, oh, look, I've got this guy, Dipesh, he's on my network, he's the head of SEO. Let me reach out to him. I wasn't as forthcoming as that when I was younger. And when I was, looking at career changes and stuff. And I wish I was more open and honest back then. But it's because I kind of believe that I just got to get on with it. I got to do it myself. That's not how it works. You've got to tap into your network. People do help you out, and you help them out. And that's how I think that's the best way to do business, and that's the way you will enjoy it the most.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued actually, Dipesh, because you've gone from being really successful with PhD. You built up a good relationship with the people there. You've had a good stint there. You've had 9 years there. You built up a team. How big was your team? Did you say 70 when you left?
Yeah, it was about 70 by the time I left.
So you've built all that up now.
Why switch, right?
Yeah. What made you want to switch to working for yourself?
This is the hardest decision I ever made in my life. And even when I decided that I'm gonna set up on my own, I wasn't totally convinced in my own head. And even my wife was like, "Look, if you're gonna do this, you do it now, all right?" So why I switched? Okay, I loved everything about my job and stuff, but there was always that something at the back of my head telling me that I still want to set up on my own. And I had attempted it before and failed, and that had never left me because I tried to set up a SEO business and I failed. That part had never left me. It was always still there that I tried to do that and it didn't work out. And so I said, I'm going to give it a go again. And the other big reason for it was my life had changed. I had a daughter.
Right.
My daughter was approaching 1. So the month that she was going to turn 1 is the month I think that's the month I resigned or left. Because that first year of her life, what was happening was by the time I got home, she was always in bed.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Not a good feeling, is it? When you get back home and she's asleep or they're asleep. So I hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what was actually really like. It was starting to affect me because I was like, I'm not even getting to see my daughter grow up. So I said something has to change. And the time just presented itself where actually, all right, let's set up. I just decided that I'm going to set up on my own at that point because I said that way initially I can work from home. I'll be able to watch my daughter grow up. Okay, I might not make the same money I did. And it's going to be tough and I'm going to have to build the business up and things like that, but at least I'm not going to miss out or regret the decision of spending time with my daughter. And I won't have those regrets when I grow, when I'm old or when I'm like looking back and and she's 20 years old or something, and I don't want to feel like, man, why didn't I spend more time with her as a baby?
And you can never get that time back, can you?
No, you can't, because I think the older kids get, the less time they want to spend with their parents.
Yeah.
Until they hit about 30 or 40, and then they kind of gravitate back to their parents.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's really weird like that. So I just didn't want to miss that. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to see how I get on. And if it gets really bad, then I'll look at contracting. I'll look at other options and go from there. And the other thing, at the time when I was quitting, I didn't know what my proposition fully was. And it kind of developed because what Gravitas Q does, essentially, is it's not just digital marketing. Yes, we can deliver your SEO. The SEO is usually delivered by me as well as, the front man for that. We deliver PPC, we do social media as well. And everything is based on performance. So it's about, the types of clients that will come to us are people that want to drive sales. They want to do lead gen on something like Facebook. They want to do lead gen on PPC. They're doing SEO because they want more sales. It's not necessarily a branding exercise. And the best way to deliver performance is have somebody that has been around and somebody that has got the experience and knows what is going to work and what isn't going to work. So the way Gravitas Q works is that I basically have built a network of a lot of freelancers, people I've worked with in the past, people I've trained as well in the past, as well as some newer people I've met along the way. Now these freelancers, they have 5 to 10 years experience. They have more experience than you would get at a bigger agency. So if you're a client and you hire an agency, a lot of the time that agency is going to have somebody that either that is a grad working in your business, that has 1 year's experience working in your business, or 2 years experience working in your business. It's rare that they're going to get that person that has 5 to 10 years working on their business, because that person who's been in the game for 10 years is going to be managing a team of 70, 80 people, like myself, right? So the way Gravitas Q works is that I'm tapping into all the people that no longer want to be in that space or working for an agency, and they want to contract, and they like the execution side of things. They like working on clients' businesses and campaigns and stuff like that, and they're not that concerned about the management and managing people side of things. So those are the people I've now tapped into, because I'm bringing a lot of experience to the table for a client. That they necessarily are they're not always going to get the right recommendations and the right answers from someone that only has 1 or 2 years in the business versus somebody that has 5 to 10 years in the business.
And I guess you've also built up your networks. You've got a great network yourself of not only people who you've worked with on other projects while you've been at PhD, but through the years, you can vet those people, having worked with them. Yeah. You can actually say, I could put my hat on this guy or this person here because I've seen their work. I know what they're all about, and I think that as well. It's really quite difficult, I believe, to find good people at the level that you want them, because often lots of people these days now, lots of business owners are getting approached by people who may only have 1 or 2 years experience in marketing and claim that they've got, they're a marketing expert sort of thing. So,
it's a huge problem that is actually, because so a lot of the clients that come to me, because I'll be honest with you, I am not the cheapest person to come to if you're a smaller business, but I do have smaller business clients, and the ones that have come to me are usually people that have been burnt in who they've hired to do their SEO and their PPC and stuff. What usually happens is a smaller business, they can't afford to necessarily pay big money for having PPC delivered for them or SEO delivered for them, and there's nobody that's ever managed the expectations in SEO, because SEO takes time. You gotta say that, okay, I'm gonna do SEO for a year, 6 months, and I'm gonna look at the results over that period of time when you initially start. Yeah. But there's no one ever manages the expectations. So with the smaller businesses, what happens is they get burned, and then they either decide
SEO's no good.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is the fight I'm in, because that's what a lot of people will be like. SEO doesn't work anymore, and they keep seeing all these ads on Facebook about Facebook advertising, and so then they start flocking off there and stuff like that. But actually, to do digital well, you should be doing SEO, you should be doing some Facebook, you should be doing some PPC, you should be even looking at affiliate programs and things like that. And all of that combined these days is what drives business growth. And so, they decide SEO doesn't work. That's one side. Then there's the very persistent ones that say, no, my mate did it and he did really well out of it, or my competitor did it and they did really well out of it. I've clearly not got the right person in here, or this is how I actually became, one of the ways I became a partner in Help for Addiction as well, was we met through the fact that he had a bad experience with a previous SEO company, and we kind of did a partnership where I would join and work on the website, and we would kind of monitor how that partnership worked, and it's gone really well. But I get a lot of people that have been burnt, and I have conversations with them. I can't always sign them all up because some people are. Some clients will still be a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Some clients will still, they won't want to spend the amount that I estimated it's going to take.
Because they want immediate results, don't they? Usually.
Yeah, immediate results and low cost. And so some clients it doesn't work with, but with many clients it does. And this is where, to be honest, I've been doing quite well out of the fact that people have been burnt in SEO. Not that I like that fact.
Yeah, of course. I know what you mean.
It's just a common story that's coming to me all the time. So,
it's so hard though to find. It's hard to find good SEOs, and I suppose now that you've gone remote as well, especially obviously you built your network, but how is that going? What are the challenges now that you face with your remote team?
Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges from working remote, and I think obviously this is all quite. I think a lot of the country is working remote currently, right, due to current circumstances. So there's going to be a lot of challenges within the workplace as well. The biggest challenges I faced from going from a big agency to suddenly sitting in a room by myself was a few actually. Firstly, that feeling of loneliness. I've got four walls around me. The only person that ever comes to talk to me is my little girl. Right? She'll pop in and she'll be like, "Daddy, you got food?" And she'll bring her fake food and stuff. So yeah, and that's a highlight of my day. That was a highlight of my day. It still is. She still does it. So, and she'll only disturb me once or twice. So it's not even a disturbance. I'm happy for it to come in.
Of course.
So like that loneliness really kicked in. Cabin fever became quite a big thing, and the fact that I've got nobody to bounce ideas off. I'm somebody that bounces off other people, and I always was. I'm always going to be a people person. So I've had to adapt a lot to how I now operate because of the fact that it's against my grain. My grain has always been, I need to be around people, I need to be social, I need to be, I perform best when I'm around others, and I'm very good at, I believe I'm very good at getting the best out of others as well. So when I transitioned to this, it was suddenly I'm lonely. It's almost that whole Yoda effect, fear leads to anger leads to sadness and that sort of thing. So, the loneliness kicks in. That loneliness leads to frustration. Your frustration then impacts your productivity. And that productivity, once you start, productivity is not as good, your self-esteem or your self-worth, you start questioning your self-worth.
So there's knock-on effects, isn't there?
Yeah. And that's when I started asking myself, have I made the right decision here about setting up on my own? And remember, I wasn't making the same money I was making when I was working for an agency because I'd worked my way up to quite a good level. So, all of that started impacting my self-worth and how I feel about myself. And, what I kind of recognized from that, this is obviously this is a little bit difficult to talk about on a podcast. Yeah. But, the moment you start questioning what your self-worth is, you're in a little bit of trouble because that means you're not in the right state of mind. And what I realized that actually the whole loneliness, the cabin fever, the productivity slipping, the linkage to self-worth, all of that wasn't the problem. It was the result of the bigger problem. And that was mindset. Yes. Mindset, having the right mindset is the most important thing. And I think anybody who's working from home and struggling right now with the coronavirus stuff going on and being locked in your house, mindset is the most important thing that you need to have right to then deliver. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, you can't just have a great mindset and then sit on your sofa and do nothing. You have to have the right mindset and process as well to do well working at home.
No, I see. And I also see as well like a little picture in my head because I went through this. When the more you talk about this, is the more I recognise the symptoms that I had in myself when I first started working from home, because like you said, I used to blame my productivity in terms of my, why I wasn't sort of achieving the goals that I didn't really look at my mindset until until I realized I was actually, I don't know how to describe it.
Much further down, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, that's almost like your last assessment.
Yeah.
First you're like, I need to get an office. And so then you say, okay, well, you're still not making that much money, but you're thinking about getting an office.
Yeah.
Right? But just so that you can make the money you need to make, right? And that was, these are the thoughts that I'm going through. And then I almost like started saying, well, you know what? I'm around my wife too much, and my wife and kid too much.
You start to blame everybody else, yeah.
And it's just, it's completely the wrong way to look at it. And, if this podcast helps someone right now, is like, take out all the excuses you're about to make and just jump straight to mindset, please, because that's where the problem is going to lie.
Can I ask you something, Dipesh? What did you do? Because when you're in that frame of mind, right, it's almost like things are... It's almost like there's like lots of pressure on top of you, and you can't. I suppose some people, they may not be able to think straight. So how do you pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and do that self-assessment? How do you even do that? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, and one of the biggest things that I realize is that when I wake up in the morning, I need to set myself up right. So to do that, I did a couple of things. First of all, I put there's a couple of things that motivate me. Like there's a portrait that has always motivated me. So I bought that portrait and I put it in my study. So when I walk into my study, the first thing I see is that portrait, right? And then the other thing is what? Like what happens is sometimes you almost start thinking too realistically, and you can't do that. When you're working from home and you don't have people around you to reassure you, or to give you recognition, or tell you you're doing a great job, you almost have to just step out of realism and just say that, look, being realistic is not the way that someone like Bill Gates did it, or and I'm not even trying to become a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs, right? But that's not the way they did it. Or Rupert Murdoch. You think that he went home to his family and told them, "Listen, I'm going to stick some satellites in the sky, and we're going to get all this news information, and we're going to do all that." Well, what do you think his family said? His family probably thought it was completely
crazy,
right? Yeah. So you have to take those examples, and I think that's important as well. Like motivation is important because you should be looking at quotes of what some of these top people are saying, and just like how you do podcasts with CEOs and stuff, the information they offer is valuable, and whenever you face a dark time at home, you should be referring to that stuff. That is one exercise you can do is, if you don't want to sit there and meditate or something, go to YouTube, put some motivational videos on, and go see what some of these guys are saying, because they will tell you some very, very important things, which not all will apply to you, but many things will.
And I think in some cases they'll say things that will set off like little. Actually, I've been in that situation myself. That's what I'm going through right now, and you begin to realise that it's not just you, right? Yeah. That's going through that particular thing or that particular issue. No, I hear that. I hear it. And
the other thing that's really good is affirmations. I don't know. Have you ever tried affirmations?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Which ones do you suggest? Are there any particular ones that you would use?
I wrote my own because so I've got about 11. And remember what I was telling you about? I was having some challenges because I started questioning my self-worth. Mm-hmm. So I basically started building affirmations, really short ones. They might be 4 or 5 word sentences. And I'd have about 11 of them. And in the morning, I'd just start the day like that. And what happened was I then suddenly stopped reading them. Mm-hmm. And for anybody that doesn't know, what an affirmation is basically just a one-liner you might say to link yourself, to remind yourself of who you are, or where you want to be. Like you might say that, I love myself. Remind yourself you love yourself. I've had a very strong career. And I will continue to do so.
Yep.
I will deliver success. regardless of how long it takes. Like these are the types, you have to have affirmations, and you might even have some of something you're already not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you might say that I am a millionaire already. Do you see what I mean? So you have to have these affirmations, because what happened to me, actually, I was doing the affirmations for quite a while, and then I stopped reading them. So then I kind of said, so I recorded them on my phone.
Okay.
So now I just have to press play, right, when I sit down at my desk, and that's it. That's good enough.
That's a good idea.
Lazy with it.
That's a good idea. That's actually a good, because what you got quite a lot of these things on YouTube, but you get other people saying them. But I think if you've done what Dipesh just suggested there, in terms of writing down your affirmation and recording yourself saying it's, and also the repetition as well. Like you said, you can't just sort of do it for 1 or 2 days and then have a month off and then come back to it after that. It's a thing that you should do, I think, on a daily basis. Do you do it daily?
Yeah. So I generally do it on a daily basis. There will be there are days missed. And I'm going to talk about process in a minute, actually, because the way when I talk about process, I talk about how do you split up your day and how you operate now at home versus how you operate in office. Really, I think that's really key. But yeah, affirmations I try to do every day. There are days that I missed, but I do regret that I missed that day afterwards.
Yeah.
Look, like the way I look at it is every little thing that helps. And there must be a reason why people say it helps. I tried the meditation thing. It doesn't work for me.
Yes.
Right? I tried to do meditation. It didn't work for me. So I said, well, rather than meditation, why can't affirmations be my meditation?
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of went down that path, because at the time, a lot of my friends were talking about meditation. A lot of gurus were talking about meditation. And I was like, I can't even sit there and basically get ants in my pants when I want my eyes closed. I have trouble sleeping. Like, it takes me ages to fall asleep, and you want me to sit there and meditate. I can't.
It's not a one size fits all, is it? It's not a one size fits all.
No, it's not at all.
You have to figure out what works for you, and I'm the same. Meditation. I've tried meditation myself, and. I think I prefer to just get myself in a zone by either listening to a certain music or reading about somebody who I really sort of respect, or affirmations, or a combination of those things. And those are the things that really sort of motivate me and sort of get me in the right frame of mind for the day going forward.
See, you have a unique method which actually is built around what you like.
Yeah.
So, meditation might not work for you. Affirmations might not work for you. The method that you're using, Alex, might not work for someone else, right? So, it's very good that you've built one that is specifically geared towards you. And that's what people need to do. They can't just say, oh, I'm going to meditate like, Bill Gates does, or, whoever else, or, Richard Branson. Or I'm not going to do it that way. You have to find your own way of doing things. And, I'll tell you a really good story about that. Because this is more about process, and I think process is really important with working from home, because one of the other things I realized was productivity. This wasn't my productivity slip, but there were times where I would be doing proposals or pitches for new business and things like that. And when I did this in the office, when I worked in an agency, I was very quick at putting something back together. I always knew what I wanted to, the story I wanted to tell to the clients, the information I wanted to show, all of that. When I suddenly started doing it at home, I would be staring at a blank PowerPoint, and I'd be like, I swear I'm really good at this. Why am I struggling a bit? So, and that's because when you're working from home, if you're not sitting at your desk, you're not working. Or if you're not typing, you're not working. If you're not sending an email, that's not how that's not how working from home works at all, right? How it works is, so I will tell you how I discovered my process. So I basically got frustrated looking at that blank PowerPoint. I went and turned on the PlayStation during the working day, started playing FIFA for about an hour and a half. My wife comes in and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Right? We've got a mortgage to pay.
And I'm like, and I said to her, what are you talking about? And then she's like, how can you be playing PlayStation when you're building this business, and you know, like you're saying how important it is, and you told me just last night how you've got a proposal you need to get done by the end of today, right? And I was like, look, basically, I was like, just leave me alone. I'm thinking, and that's actually when I discovered my process. Because so when you go to work, you always have to get on the train. I had a 1 hour commute on a train.
There's a set way of doing it, isn't there?
Yeah. So what would happen is that I've already started planning. I've already done the audits and the downloads, and I already know what information I need, right? So on the train, I've already started planning what my slides are going to look like, right? So by the time I've then gone through that process for that 1 hour on the train, I then got to work and said, I need to knock out this proposal, and I need to get this proposal done so that it's ready for today or tomorrow or this week or whatever. I'm very quick at it because I've already visualized what it's going to look like in my head.
Yeah.
And so that time when I sat there and I played FIFA, I had basically gone through that process. I went and sat down at my desk, and within 2 hours that proposal was done, right? Because I hadn't done that process bit, the thinking bit, And, you know, because I was sitting at my desk staring at the slide thinking, what shall I do? Rather than not being anywhere near my desk and processing everything that I need to do and visualizing it in my head and creating it in my head before I go recreate it physically.
Yeah. So
my wife was like, my wife realized that, wow, that is a process. Like, I get it. Like, what you did there was fairly impressive.
Yeah.
And that's how I discovered what my process was. So suddenly now, if I have a proposal or something like that I might turn on the PlayStation. I might go to the gym, and we can't go to the gym right now. But they're closed, right? So, you know, but I would go to the gym, and basically I'll go for a run. So on the day I've got a proposal, I'll pick specific things like a run, because that's long. You can only think during a run because you're on a treadmill, and
of course
there's nothing to nothing, just don't hit the Netflix buttons or anything like that, right? So I'd go for a run, then I'll go in the swimming pool, and then I'll go in the jacuzzi. And in that time, I will have processed what I'm supposed to be doing when I get back at my desk. So then, 10:30 I go to the gym, I'll be back at 11:30, and bang! That proposal will be done over the next 2 days, right?
It's a couple of things there, isn't there? It's the first thing is, your mind, when you're at work and you have to have that commute, your mind is almost like gets used to a rhythm, doesn't it? Of going through the process of that gap of going through work to work, which in your mind is working and thinking about what you've got to do when you get there. But when you're at home, you don't have that sort of that commute, so to speak. So that journey is you on your PlayStation playing FIFA, isn't it? And
exactly. And as I started to dissect that even more, what I realized was that there were times where I would go sit in the canteen at work, and I would just sit there with a coffee and maybe a piece of toast, or in the morning, or like I'd be sitting there at lunchtime, after lunchtime, for a little bit longer. And what I was doing at those times was processing how these things work. I need to blow my nose.
No, go for it. While you're doing that, I'll just say as well.
I was going to say, right now, the worst thing to do is cough or blow your nose or something.
But at least we've got our distance. At least we've got a 2 meter distance between us.
Exactly.
No, I was going to say the other thing.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say. The other thing is, you talked about sitting at your computer. That's the first thing you talked about, where you're just sitting at a blank screen, and it can become frustrating, can't it? I don't know about you, but if you sit at a computer and nothing is sort of coming to you, I become more and more frustrated, or become more and more frustrated. So I have to then take myself away, physically, usually away from that situation. And it might mean I go out and, I don't know, go and sit outside with a pen and paper, or I might just, I don't know, go for a run around the block or a walk, or just do something that completely takes me away from the scenario of sitting down. And that's when my thoughts start to gather themselves and I start to think, Yeah,
it's so important. And everybody that's working from home and stuck at home right now, they'll be going through some of these stages. So the biggest thing you can do is identify when you do your thinking and how you do your thinking.
Yeah, I love
might not
that.
necessarily be sitting at a desk.
I love that.
And, you know, for you, that might become something like hitting a tennis ball against a wall for an hour.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? It's still working. It's not. That doesn't mean you're suddenly not working. As long as you're still focused on what your task at hand is,
Yeah.
and you're basically trying to figure out how you're going to do it, you're still working. So, you know, that is very important for people to understand. Because
I like that. Yeah.
I saw this video where somebody's using a fan or something to move their mouse around at home, so it pretend looks like they're working. And I'm like, that's not how it should be. Companies shouldn't be sitting there monitoring, are people still logged in? Are people still logged in? That's not how working from home works.
And
right?
people work differently, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody works in different ways. And I think that everyone has to self-reflect to find what that process is. When do you do your thinking? When do your best ideas come to you? You know, what do you actually do at your desk when you're sitting there? And why are you, you know, the times you're most productive, why are you that productive at your desk? And, you know, again, if we can tie this all back to mindset, because if you accept all of these things, suddenly you're already in a better mindset and frame of mind, because you know how you operate in a different condition.
No, I love that.
To going into an office. Yeah.
Deliberate. On the flip side of that, if you're feeling at your lowest point, you probably need to assess yourself and look at yourself and think to yourself, why am I feeling like this right now? What's causing me to feel this way? And then when you're more aware of the things that help you to do your best work, or you're aware of the things that are causing you to be in a slump, then you can actually begin to think about remedying them, right?
Yeah, and you know, there's already signs of it, because so I think I mentioned that I've partnered with a gentleman named Nick.
Yes.
On his business help for addiction, and we did an equity deal where I would basically take equity of the website, and you know, we've been working together for over a year now. And, you know, due to all the current circumstances, we're literally launching online therapy next week, because we've had an influx of demand for online therapy, and everything seems to be related to more mental health, with the idea that you've got this virus out there, and that virus scares people. It's frightening, right? Yeah, and then, like, people are working from home now. So they're not only dealing with the pressure of, I need to learn what my process is of working from home, how I operate from home, the boredom of not being able to leave your house. Then they've got this virus out there as well that they're scared, they're frightened of. They're scared that something's going to happen to them or their family member or their friends, right? So there is, you know, that's going on in the back of their mind as well. So, you know, that's why, like, this whole online therapy, what we're doing with that is, the reason we're launching online is simply so we can deliver it via Zoom, so people can have that while they're at home. But the only reason we've done this is because we've already had inquiries about you know, having therapy from home. Can you give us therapy from home? And we, you know, we've got the therapist, so we're like, let's just deliver it online, because, you know, I think that as this develops, and depending on how long we're on lockdown, there's going to be a lot of people are going to start struggling with working from home. So, you know, I hope that they listen to this conversation, because, you know, you've said some really useful stuff about, you know, about the process, about, like, how you found your way, how I found my way. And I think that's, everybody has to find their way at this time, and find something that works positive for them. I come from the school of positivity, and I'll tell you something, when I set up on my own, that all went out the window. I thought I was immune to feeling negative about anything.
Nowadays,
But it's easy to be positive when everything's going right.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not so easy when everything's going wrong. It's still easy when it's a little bit's gone wrong, but when everything, suddenly all the pressure is on you, and you have to deliver, positivity is, you're not sitting there thinking, let me just be positive about this right now.
It's one thing,
but you need to have that positive mindset.
Yeah, it's one thing being a manager or a founder or an owner of a business that's that's co-located. There's pressures to that are brought to bear on somebody who is that person, because they often talk about being wondering who they should talk to. But when it comes to being that person, that founder or that manager, and then working remotely, I think it's even more the pressures are even greater because
Even
you don't have that
greater,
contact. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Because Alex, you like if you're a manager right now, you're probably thinking not just about yourself. You're probably thinking how. If you're a good manager, you'll be thinking, how am I going to manage my team and make sure that
Absolutely. Yeah.
they are mentally okay as well.
And how? I mean, actually, on that point, how can you recognise sort of symptoms in your own team as well? I mean, as much as it's probably, I don't know if it's easier. I mean, not to say that I find it easy to look for the symptoms in myself, but it can sometimes be more difficult to look for symptoms in people you're managing, because people, I don't know, unless you've got a really, really close relationship with somebody and you know them inside out, it's sometimes people might mask them, or I don't know. What can you do?
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. You know what? There's actually quite a lot you can do as a manager. First, when you first sit down and think about it, get yourself right. Make sure that you're comfortable and you've found your process at home and how you're going to basically continue to be productive, and how you're going to make sure you have the right mindset every morning and stuff like that. So once you've looked after yourself, now you help your team, right? But you got to be quick with it if you're a manager, because you can't take weeks to find your own process and stuff. You got to be pretty quick. So in the meantime, what you should be doing is implementing something that creates a little bit of normality to what your staff has in the office. Now, what do staff love most in the office? Well, they will enjoy the fact that they get to have banter with their colleagues. Mm-hmm. They will, and I'm taking the work bit out of it. Like, whether you enjoy your work or not is got nothing to do with this right now, right? You need to basically, as a manager, you should be focused. If you want the best out of them at this time, you should be focusing on their mindset and what you create that keeps them in a strong frame of mind right now. So the biggest thing that we all have right now is we can all relate to the fact that we're all locked in our houses. So as a manager, if you didn't have anything that that you could relate to with your staff before, you've certainly got something now, because you're going to be having the same challenges as your staff is.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what I would suggest is, if you're not always going to recognise when somebody is feeling down, because they might pretend. But what you will notice is that if they're more frustrated on web conference meetings or on the phone, you'll be able to sense frustration. For sure, because somebody who normally contributes a lot will suddenly contribute less. Somebody who doesn't contribute as much anyway, but will suddenly become very quiet or very distant, or when you've asked them something, they might not necessarily be as focused on their work. You know, it's good to ask. It's good to ask your staff details at this time, because if they're not in the detail when they normally are, then you'll be able. It's another tell, right? But I think that rather than trying to identify, okay, which one of my team has got anxiety and which one hasn't, I think that what you're going to be more better off doing is, as a manager, ring up everybody, ring up whoever your team members are. I mean, even if you got a team of, like, when I had a team of 70 people, I still had 5 direct reports, right? And then it kind of filters down. So at least ring up your direct reports, and maybe ring up a couple of people underneath them too, and just have a conversation in the house things. You get you talk to them about some of your frustrations. Let them talk about some of their frustrations, because letting it out is going to help as well.
Yeah.
We've got things like Zoom as well, where you can have a whole group meeting. Mm-hmm. So you should be setting one of those, every 2 or 3 days, I think, at this moment in time, just not necessarily to do work, right? But just so all the staff are still talking to each other. So you might talk a bit about work, but then talk a bit about everything else going on. Don't just let it all go back to work.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to talk to your staff about work at this worrying time, then they are not going to be mentally prepared or mentally safe, because what you need to be creating some normality about what they have in their workplace.
Yeah.
That fact that if you've got a Zoom and everybody's on it and everybody's having a laugh about something, then that's great. The other thing is, you could even do evening drinks, right? You could say that, let's all have a team drink together. this evening. It's Friday or it's Thursday.
Remotely.
Let's do remote drinks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
The other thing, there's a great app. It's called House Party. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. I'm going to write that one down. House Party, yeah?
House Party, yeah. So what you can do, House Party, you could set up, you and your team could set up a House Party, and like, let's say you decide to FaceTime one of your team members.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be having a conversation with that team member, but somebody else from your team can then intrude and jump in on that call.
Okay.
That's if you don't lock. So if you leave the room open, so somebody else from your team or your friends list can jump in on that call and suddenly just randomly join the conversation.
Planned spontaneity.
It's banter, isn't it? Like in the office as well. It'd just be a good laugh to do something like that. You have to be delivering. I just think you need to be, right now at this moment in time, you should be delivering more mindset stuff than how far are you with your work, have you hit the deadlines and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
As long as you've got a team that hits deadlines, then you should be focusing on the people and what their state of mind is and how the communication is flowing more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in this, because I've spoken to people who've been in the world of remote work, who've worked remotely for 10, 20 years, and some of them, it took them 6 months, a year, 2 years to get to grips with working from home. And forget about the day-to-day work that they have to do. It just took them like that length of time to just bed in. So I agree with you. I think it's so important to talk about things other than work, but it's also important to have that empathy and have that patience with your team so that you can give them as much time as possible to actually acclimatize to this new sort of way of life that we're having at the moment. You have to get them ready for it, prepare them for it.
I completely agree, because businesses are worried as well right now, because obviously profits are down, sales are down. For somebody that's leading that business, it's difficult, because they need to worry about the patience of their employee, and then they need to worry about their bottom line. But I think that if you can focus more on the people, so that bottom line improves, and that might be one way to go about it. Or you do need to split your time by saying, okay, well, clearly we're going to need more clients, clearly we're going to need more sales. So you put things in place for that, and then you say, how am I going to carry on making my people deliver as well as they've always delivered? And you have to put something in place for that. You can't, if you as a business owner, if you now suddenly just focus on the sales bit because that's where the emergency is, then this side, the people thing, is going to dip, without doubt. It's, you're going to have to be that leader that you thought you was, or you are, when you started this business, and you're going to start juggling things, again, and make sure your focus is split in two places.
Yeah, it's a different kind of leadership, isn't it? It's
really,
more,
yeah.
It's more.
I really feel for business owners right now. Really feel for them.
I do. I do too. It's difficult. I think those business owners also, or business owners, managers, founders, they also need to have that support network themselves, because what you have to realize is you're taking on being that, I suppose, coach. I suppose you could say they're almost becoming coaches, and being more sort of all that empathy. It's going to probably take a sort of toll on you as well, because you're having to, like you said, you're going to have to acclimatize to working remotely and getting your team all in place and dealing with all the daily pressures that it takes to actually run a team or run a business. Yeah. But who is looking after you? So you have to figure out who that person would be, or bring people into your network, your support network, to look after you as well, so that you're in the best possible position to look after your team.
Yeah, agree. And I think you just stumbled on something really important, like who's looking after you. And so, like, I think that you should still be trying, just like we talked about remote drinks with your work colleagues and stuff like that. I think you still should be doing some remote stuff with your friends. So I've actually got something planned, today. Is I'm going to be playing a poker game on PokerStars, and it's not for a lot of money. It's a very small amount of money, but I'm playing in a private room with friends, and simultaneously we're all going to be talking on Zoom as well while we play. And that's something I've got planned tonight because I can't go into one of their houses and play a poker game, can I? You just can't. So we said, well, we're all stuck in the house. Should we have a game of poker like we would normally, like once every couple of months? But we'll do it from home, and we'll do it on PokerStars because you can have a private room, and we'll come and Zoom at the same time. And this is all of that stuff is what helps your well-being as well, because you got to see your friends or your family and stuff like that, and this is just how you have to function for a little while. But you got to embrace all the technology that we've got, because we've created all this technology that allows us to be remote, and aren't we lucky we created it?
Yeah, exactly.
And why we should be using it, because we've built a world where you can stay at home.
Literally,
right?
Yeah. No, I agree, and it's about also thinking outside of the box. I suppose I'd never have thought of actually. I mean, I don't know much about poker or gaming is not something I do that much, but I know that, for example, places like Twitch. If you are a gamer, Twitch is a place where you can sort of hang out. You can create private spaces, can't you, and game on there, or I don't know. Just like you said, just having. For something like Skype, if you've got people in your network, you can just gather together and just talk about what went on.
Yeah, exactly.
And lots of these apps now, for example, Google now, they've stepped up and they've improved Hangouts, and they've got Meet now, haven't they? And you can have, 10, I think up to 20 people, 25 people on there at a time.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different tech.
So I didn't know that, because I use Google Hangouts quite a bit, but I've always used it just for like almost like a FaceTime or something.
Yeah.
When I'm only having a meeting one, because I didn't know that actually they're doing a similar thing. That's quite good.
Yeah. But I think that interaction, we're human beings after all. We need interaction. We need to separate work from, like you suggested, Dipesh. We need to separate our work from our downtime. We need to have that downtime. We have to have that sort of baked in to the daily life, or at least once or twice a week, especially now. So
definitely now.
So
go on.
I was going to say, what are the plans for you now? What are the plans for you and Gravitas Q? And
so, as I said, I feel sorry for business owners because, to be honest, right now is a difficult time for Gravitas Q as well. We've had a couple of clients turn off their PPC ads, so that's going to impact. That is, as a business, that's going to impact me, because if they're not advertising, then obviously I've got less to do. I'm very lucky in the fact that SEO clients they continue to do what they do, and they should, because with SEO it's you can't just suddenly stop because we're on lockdown for a little while. SEO is something you've got to keep doing anyway. I think with PPC and social media, because it's real time, there are pockets where a couple of clients have turned off because it doesn't make sense for them to be live. Like if you're in a venue and you're doing PPC ads,
exactly,
but your venue's closed, there's no point. There's no point in running ads to send people to ask them to come to your shop or anything like that, right? So it's going to be a tough time. I mean, I'm confident Gravitas Q will get through it, but it's going to be a tough time. And going forward, I mean, like it's almost business as usual otherwise. So I'm lucky in the fact that I've got a good client book, in the sense that I've got a variation of clients, so they're not all PPC where everybody has to turn off or anything like that. So I'm very lucky in that sense. So it's business as usual, and with Gravitas Q, it's just the plan is to continue growing it, and kind of like one of the biggest things that Gravitas Q needs is exposure, and the fact that we're bringing people with 5 to 10 years to the table, with 5 to 10 years experience to the table. And what they can do and how good they are is very, very important, and to how a business can grow, whether you're large or small. You might be a very big brand and you've just never managed to get your performance right. Well, what if I told you we can give you people that have been around and have worked on a lot of brands and managed to get the best out of some big brands as well. So that is the message we're putting out there, because I think that a lot of brands are now kind of becoming a little bit hesitant with agencies and things like that. And this is the whole reason the consultancy was started up. And even if you want somebody to review what, as a big, if you want somebody to review whether you're doing the right stuff, then that's another reason to give us a call as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, it's business as usual. As I said, on Help for Addiction, we're going live on online therapy this week. So that's going to be big because there's a lot of people out there who are not going to be able to go to rehab to deal with their alcohol addictions or drug addictions. There are people that might be having anxiety and depression issues. So the fact that they'll be able to get therapy at home from their phone or tablet or computer is going to be really big, and that's delivered by a registered therapist from our clinic anyway. So,
so you're still busy then? You're still keeping busy?
Yeah, still busy. It's a bit like the hard bit is not being able to go out. So I haven't been able to go to the gym. And today this morning I was feeling a little sore. Like my muscles aren't,
they're not active. Yeah,
they're not active. So today I'm going to go for a run, probably about 4 or 5 o'clock as well, because I'm going to have to go out and at least have a run in the fresh air.
Well, at least we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to do that.
Yeah, we're allowed to exercise once today. So, and I haven't been taking the opportunity to do that either.
Yeah, again, that's another. I mean, that could be a whole other podcast, couldn't it? On how to sort of keep physically in shape, because that's. I actually did a podcast about that in terms of because lots of people we talk about the mindset and the mental aspect of working from home, rightly so, because it affects a lot of people. But sometimes that's we neglect the physical consequences of working from home as well, because obviously you have to have that discipline, don't you? You have to be able to discipline yourself to get up and walk up and down the stairs or go to the gym or go around the block. So that's a whole different story, which we'll cover at another time, I guess.
Yeah, mate, there's definitely a podcast in that, because when I first set up on my own, I was thinking, you know what, this is brilliant. I want to go to the gym every day, and it did not last. I was very bored when I was in the workplace, right? So I was like, something's not right here. I thought that.
I thought this would be easier.
And your fatigue does suffer a little bit. Because if you're not exercising, then you know what happens. Your productivity changes. I started intermittent fasting as well, where I don't eat anything till 1 o'clock as well, and I find that really good because in the morning I'm not like rushing around to have. I'm not rushing around, but I'm not worried about what I'm having for breakfast. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come in the kitchen, get a coffee and get on my desk, and it just makes me a whole lot more productive as well. So you probably have got a podcast on that.
Yeah, there's definitely a podcast. But this one has been really eye-opening for me, and it's like I said, it's been good to have some FaceTime with you, having written to you all these years, and I just want to wish you all the best with Gravitas Q. I'll be keeping obviously up to date with that. What I want to do as well is make sure that we get help for addiction in the show notes, so people can actually link to it from the show notes. And if any of this has chimed with you today, if you're experiencing, I don't know, slumps in your mood, if you're feeling not yourself, if somebody is not feeling themselves, then don't keep it to yourself. Whatever you do, at the very least, talk to somebody. But it may be that help for addiction could be something that could help you out.
Definitely reach out, because on the website you can even there's instant web chat, there's a consultation form, so you don't necessarily have to come and buy online therapy before somebody is willing to have a conversation with you. If you just put a little message in the web chat, and Nick or one of his colleagues will have a conversation with you. Less likely to be me, as I'm probably not I'm not the best suited to it. But people that have got experience in therapy, people that have experience with addiction, you can have a conversation with them on web chat on helpforaddiction.co.uk. So definitely, if you are struggling with remote working, then definitely can do it. But I hope, the conversation today that we've had, that will help people. That will help people anyway. So
no, I'm sure it will. Definitely. I'm sure it will, and we'll be keeping up to date.
Thank you for having me on as well.
Pleasure. It was my pleasure. And we will speak to you soon. And thank you everybody for listening. And we'll catch you with another episode very soon. So all of you, take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.